Stone, and this is Year by Year. It was 1935. Benny Goodman and the Big Band Sound shared the airwaves with the Lone Ranger and Fibber McGee and Molly. FDR was getting his New Deal off the ground. A series of dramatic human interest stories captured the public's imagination. The year's newsreels provided compelling coverage of the trial of Bruno in the Lindbergh baby kidnapping case, the assassination of Louisiana Governor Huey Long, and a nation in mourning for favorite son Will Rogers, killed in a plane crash with aviator Wiley Post. Vintage footage of these stories and more as Year by Year presents 1935.
I myself would be indeed happy to see our share our wealth program enacted in. That would mean that I could get out of politics and out of public life. And that is a consummation of my public career which I have desired for some time. As long as it remains a fight that the people of this country be given a reasonable share of the profits and prosperity of this country, I will undertake to remain in this public affairs and to go as far forward as I can to promote the program. We'll not become excited by the newspaper headlines, nor by anything that the radio commentators may say on the line. The President has now swallowed our share our wealth program. We'll sit right here and we'll go over to the Senate to help him whenever the time comes, or in any other way that we can, enact legislation that guarantees a home and the comforts of home to everybody, or which limits the size of the big fortunes as a means of accomplishing the good things to the man and to the people at the bottom. Well, we've had the promises from the President many, many times, and now we're wanting a fulfillment. No empty words, no empty messages mean anything to us, and no kind of law except one that gives employment, and home, and comfort, and education to our people will satisfy us in the least.
Italian ways and byways are resounding to the tread of actual feet. By the thousands, Il Duce's black-shirted soldiers are mobilizing their for war service. Fascist militiamen, youngsters, most of them, bound for Africa. War clouds loom over Abyssinia, and boatload after boatload of Italian troops are being sent to Italy's two colonial territories bordering Abyssinia. Those borders are, is open question. That's what all is about. But if there's anyone who can straighten out the border question quickly for Mussolini, it's those aboard the troop ship eager for action. A tough job awaits any army moving against Abyssinia. It's a vast country, and it's wild and woolly. Mountains, hills, and valleys, and its broad belts make ideal country for raids, surprise, and ambushes. And its nomadic children take to fighting like a duck to... It's reported that Emperor Haile Selassie, as potentate, the Lion of Judah, has 9,000 tribesmen moving toward the contested frontiers. Fierce tribesmen, wizards of the saddle who fear neither man nor... If this is so, the flower of Italy is transplanted to a hotbed of strife, and Roman metal will soon be tempered by the heat of the fanatical patriotism. It's goodbye winter, hello summer. Here at the famous beach resort, as the bathing beauties plan their new campaign, new creations, ideas, and exposures to startle and captivate the tired businessman of 1935. These styles are owned by the Blatt store here, Digital Beach Sensor. Who's to say what's what, what's not on the beach and boardwalk this season? And they're going native. Flowered effects from Tahiti and Langar South Sea Islands. And here's the lace curtain bathing suit. Peekaboo. But the censor says they're all okay. He's rather nifty in his new style beach patrol getup. The handsome lifeguards and the seaside Adonises will have to look to their laurels when the Atlantic police stroll the sand. Hey, officer, call a cop. The airship Macon, a $4 million dirigible, outbound from the Gulf for maneuvers at sea with the fleet. A fateful trip ending in disaster. Gas bags burst, and the giant air fighter ran amok, finally diving to the ocean bed. A complete wreck. Huge machine gun bullets tipped with printer's ink to make their mark on airplanes in important tests by Battery E of the 63rd Coast Artillery from Fort Arthur. Tests of the Army's giant machine gun, a jumbo gun of 50 calibers, destined to be a plaything of the next war. First and most effective threat to airplanes and to tanks. As fast as a small machine gun, too. 100 shots a minute. Each projectile as big as a finger, many times the size of regular bullets. They spread a curtain of death for miles. Even in target practice, the giant gun is as military experts. It takes good headwork to keep on top, even in wrestling. The French like to fight with their feet, according to song and story. But here are a couple of butter and egg men from Australia showing the Parisians how to use the old bean. Diving beauties, I'd call them. Whoop! Hey! No fair touching with the hands. It isn't cricket. It isn't wrestling either. It must be a circus act, trying out its new acrobatic routine. They can take plenty of punishment, these Anzacs, but they're fair and square. Square-headed. Just a pair of Australian woodchoppers hacking away at each other's blocks, demonstrating the new ring tactics from down under. It may be wrestling to them, but it's skullduggery to most of us. Another crack, and they'll both be out. Yep, and there it is. After that, brains they have none. A real robot plane. A huge Douglas transport airliner at that, being tested by Army officials, presumably for a radio robot-controlled flight to Honolulu. A small ring direction finder set atop the cabin enables the plane to head directly for any broadcast station. The test flyers say it makes blind flying safe and certain. Here they go with darkened windows on a test flight to fly the music, as they call it, to ride the broadcast waves from ship to ship at sea and back to shore again in a final test before the ethical blind flight to Hawaii. The new development is of far-reaching importance to aviation. It means sure flying in darkness and in fog, over land or ocean. Babe Ruth signs the ethical contract with the president of the Braves, Judge Emil Fuchs, that makes him vice president, player, and assistant manager of the Boston National League baseball team. The former Yankee Sultan is right back where he started 21 years ago, back in Boston. But oh, how different. He aims to play at least 100 games this year, but after he takes off a dozen pounds or so. And here they go, starting him off at the Copley Plaza with a big banquet he doesn't dare eat if he expects to train down in a hurry. St. Petersburg, Florida, just like mid-season here. There it is. No, a foul. Just a teaser for the training camp fans, eh, babe? But now, let's have a good one for old time's sake. Zowie! Out into the stratosphere! Who got the idea that the babe isn't still the fair-haired boy?
Still to come on Year by Year, the conviction of Bruno Hauptmann in the Lindbergh baby kidnapping case. Front page news in 1935, Hitler renounces the Treaty of Versailles. President Roosevelt signs the Social Security Act, and the first night game in the history of Major League Baseball.
Bruno Richard Hauptmann has been found guilty of breaking his way into the Lindbergh mansion, the Eagle's Nest high in the Sauerland Mountains, and of murdering the Lindbergh baby. Charles A. Lindbergh, Jr., Baby Lindbergh, beloved by all, by his nurse, Betty Gow, and others in the Lindbergh household. The kidnapped ladder was strong evidence against Hauptmann, as were other clues left by the kidnapper. What drama was unfolded in that trial? Colonel Schwarzkopf and the startling police alarm, the frantic search for the missing child, the mysterious ransom note to Colonel Lindbergh, and then the strange entry into the case of Jack C. Condon and his meetings with a man he says was Hoffman. Then the passing of the ransom money, $50,000 at a strange tryst in a Bronx cemetery. $50,000 in marked bills, but still no baby. Finally, the finding of the little body, murdered. But the ransom money was earning its price. A Bronx gas station manager, suspicious, noted a license number, and the trail led to Hoffman. He had the ransom money, thousands of it, not in his Bronx home, but hidden in his garage, stuffed in a battered old oil can. What an impression these facts made upon the long-suffering New Jersey jury. Hoffman's arrest and his extradition to Flemington, New Jersey, the county seat of Hunterdon County, was the opening act of a drama destined to electrify the sleepy little town of Flemington and to make it the news focus of the world, with its quaint colonial courthouse, the stage for the trial of the century. A gripping life drama far more dramatic than any enacted behind the footlights. A drama with its audience, the people of Flemington and of the world. And among its principals, the 12 men and women, good and true, whose responsibility it was to pass judgment on Hoffman's guilt. A representative jury of New Jersey residents, the collection of their fellow citizens. And the other principals, Edward J. Riley, Chief of Defense Counsel, arriving at the courthouse. Mrs. Hoffman, too, brave wife of the condemned man, and their baby, Manfred, pitiful pawns in this drama of crime and of death. Courageously, she keeps up her spirits, hoping against hope on the eve of the verdict, but she can't conceal her deep concern as she rushes to the courthouse for the final act. And other deeply interested principals, Mrs. Ann Lindbergh and Mrs. Morrow, the murdered infant's grandmother. Then, aged by grief and tragedy of the past 3 years, stalks Colonel Lindbergh, the lone eagle, confident that Hoffman is the man who got the ransom money, who kidnapped and killed his son and heir. The jury assembles for the final battle of words and wits. Judge Trenchard takes his place on the bench. The prisoner is pale as his counsel fights in vain and as the prosecutor sums up.
He wanted it for. What do you suppose he did with it? He wanted that money so he could, as he did, live a life of luxury and ease so he wouldn't have to work. He quit his job the day he collected the $50,000. The very day they had to replace him.
The state of New Jersey has rested its case, convinced that it has clearly shown that the defendant Bruno Richard Hoffman came to the state of New Jersey on the night of March the 1st, 1932, brought the ladder which he built to the Lindbergh estate, climbed into the Lindbergh nursery, took the Lindbergh child and murdered it.
The die is cast. The fate of Bruno Richard Hoffman is in the hands of the jury, and the shaken Bronx carpenter is taken to his cell to await their deliberations, their weighing of the evidence for and against him. A crowd that jams the streets, tense with excitement. The jury's in. They've reached a verdict. It's guilty. Guilty of murder in the first degree with no plea for mercy. And Hoffman is immediately sentenced to die during the week of March 18th. Through as bizarre a scene as ever marked in American court drama, the jury files away. In the New Jersey State Penitentiary at Trenton, he will await his doom, even though an appeal may prolong his life. His abode will be the death house, measuring the hours until he is led to the death chamber on his way to the electric chair and oblivion. Payment in full for the crime of the century. The great racing machine, Bluebirds, ready for a trial, and Sir Malcolm Campbell set for a new try at the land speed record here on the Florida sands. The beach is still a bit rough, but he's going to chance it in an attempt to better his world's record of 272 miles an hour. There's danger, but he's used to that. 4 miles a minute and more is always dangerous. Here he comes. That was a good run, but not good enough. The huge car doesn't want to stay on the ground. Sir Malcolm was bouncing out of his seat most of the time. But after she's turned around, he'll head back over the 11-mile course in another daring effort at bullet speed. Another tilt with death, with the rut going, making every foot of the way a desperate chance and a thrill for the crowd. There he is. Something's wrong. He's having trouble. He's hit a terrific pace, but the car was almost out of control. Yep, a part of the engine cowling came loose and allowed the exhaust gases to blast back into his face. Look at the twisted cowling. It's a wonder he didn't pass out from the fumes. At 4 miles a minute, too. Greece is aflame with revolt and civil war. Carefully organized revolt that flared in scores of places on land and sea. Here at the Salamis Naval Base, rebels seized 5 warships. In Crete, they were joined by former Premier Venizelos, seen there with his wife. The armored cruiser Averof, pride of the Greek Navy, is now flagship for the insurrectionists. Manned by officers and men who are ardent followers of Venizelos, the rebel fleet is playing hide-and-seek with the government war vessels. But the government Air Force is hot after them, repeatedly bombing the ships and raking their decks with machine gun fire. The revolt was sudden and threw Athens into a panic with heavy street fighting. Government forces mobilized rapidly and gained an upper hand in many places. But in Macedonia and Thrace, the civil war is still raging. War clouds again darken Europe. Germany has hurled the gauntlet of arms equality into the faces of her former foes. She's come out in the open to announce the immediate conscription of an army of 500,000 men. The race for armaments and war is on. Militarism is again in the saddle. Washington is tense too. Listen to Senator Maura Shepard of the Military Affairs Committee.
Hitler's course is a blow at the peace of mankind and the progress of civilization.
Senator Gerald P. Nye, chairman of the Munitions Investigations Committee.
Actions in Germany and elsewhere speak rather loudly of a world bent upon more war. There is but one war that I would like to see this world engage in. That is a war which would find civilization making war against the private munitions makers the world over. Success for civilization in such a war, I think, would rather clearly reveal what is largely behind this agitation for larger preparation for war.
Widespread drought and dust storms of unprecedented magnitude grip the West. A black blizzard turning day into night and blasting 36 million acres of crops and grazing land. Millions of dollars lost and untold suffering.
Still to come on Year by Year, FDR finds the Supreme Court out of order. Stay with us. Welcome back to Year by Year. On May 27, 1935, the Supreme Court dealt a blow to the Roosevelt administration. It struck down the National Recovery Act, declaring it unconstitutional. The New Deal was in jeopardy.
In one of the most important decisions of the decade, the Supreme Court of the United States has unanimously ruled that the NRA Act and all of its codes are void. The decision was handed down in the Schechter Poultry case, a Brooklyn poultry firm accused by the NRA and its plant padlocked for alleged code violations. The case was carried to the Supreme Court as a test case, and as a result of Schechter's victory, the Blue Eagle has been brought to earth by a sick chicken. The Supreme Court ruled that Congress exceeded its rights under the Constitution and delegated too much lawmaking power to the president in connection with his recovery program. The decision is a tremendous setback for the president's New Deal and is causing great concern in administration circles. The chief executive is now working at top speed with his NRA Board of Strategy, Solicitor General Reed, Senator Harrison, Attorney General Cummings, and Donald Richburg to salvage the NRA. Meanwhile, President Green of the AFL warns against industrial chaos unless code wages and hours are maintained. With an impressive cavalcade of motor cars speeding across the very top of Boulder Dam, President Roosevelt arrives to dedicate the Great Power and Irrigation Project before 20,000 people assembled here from all parts of the Southwest. He sounds the praises of the giant construction job, the greatest ever tackled by man, a $108 million project that will harness the Colorado River for flood control and produce 2 million horsepower of electricity. The 726-foot dam, towering from the canyon bed of the Colorado, is the 8th wonder of the world and is hailed by the president as an outstanding symbol of public works. The new Queen of the Seas, the giant French luxury liner Normandy, on her maiden voyage, a floating skyscraper, the largest and fastest ship afloat. And what a send-off she gets from the crowds as she starts her initial ocean crossing. Full speed ahead, and she's built for speed. Her officers are out to win the laurels of the Atlantic with this marvel of maritime engineering. And her knife-edged prow is cutting the waves at express speed, breaking all transatlantic records. There's the captain, master skipper of this super craft, and what a craft she is. Her broad top deck forms a veritable playground. The glass-enclosed lower decks are spacious club rooms for recreation and comfort, a floating hotel, an ocean paradise. Among the distinguished passengers on this historical trip is Madame Albert Lebrun, wife of the President of France. Inside, the Normandy is an elaborate palace with winter gardens and other amazing appointments. The vast dining room is the equal of any hotel banquet hall. The great liner cost 800 million francs, about $40 million to you, and it's plain that not all of it went into steel and machinery. But the ship's immediate bid for fame is in its speed, and its 160,000 horsepower engines are driving her towards America at a new unheard-of pace for ocean passage. 30 knots, more than 35 miles an hour, cutting hours from the trip between the continents. Bringing America and Europe closer together. And what a welcome the great vessel gets in New York waters. The harbor is alive with boats, craft of all descriptions, voicing a wild greeting to the new mistress of the waves. What a giantess she is. More than 1,000 feet long, 4 city blocks, with a gross tonnage of nearly 80,000 tons. The 61st running of the Kentucky Derby, America's supreme turf thrill, with 50,000 fans wild as Omaha, gallant son of gallant Fox 1930 winner, romps down the stretch 2 lengths to the good in a fighting finish to become the wonder horse of 1935. Il Duce sounds the tocsin of war, calling upon the people of Italy for a war of conquest against Ethiopia. And the answer is yes. Haile Selassie, the conquering Lion of Judah, quickly answers the challenge, calling upon the League of Nations for justice and support, and upon his savage tribesmen for loyalty. And Ethiopia's black warriors respond with vigor and determination. In fierce, fanatic fury, they pledge their lives before the emperor's throne to beat back the Italian invader. Half-equipped, half-armed, the Ethiopian forces rush to the front to meet their modern foe. Scouting League warnings, Italy throws her might against the Ethiopian frontiers in wave after wave of modern fighting machines and well-trained soldiers in a war that threatens the peace of Europe and that will make 1935 a critical date in history. A Amelia Earhart's about to introduce you to a new thrill for the air-minded. A parachute tower constructed at Prospertown, New Jersey for training in parachute jumping. And there she goes up for a trial hop. Only it's all guide to the chute, which can't fail to let you down without harm. It's a great thrill for those who like it, though. And there she comes, shooting the works. Now, ain't that something?
Von Kram, Germany, in the final of the men's singles at Wimbledon. Von Kram returns forehand. Perry gets it back. Von Kram returns. Von Kram returns short. Perry runs up, gets it. Von Kram returns. Perry stabs and wins the point. Perry's attack is too much for Von Kram. Perry's next service gains him match point. With the score at 6-2, 6-4, 5-4, Von Kram drives out, and Perry is world champion. Helen Rose Moody versus Helen Jacobs. I should perhaps have said clash, not meet, because this match up to now has been the most amazing display of vigorous, exhaustive tennis I've ever seen. Both have a set to their credit, 6-3, 3-6. This final set has gone backwards and forwards, first 2-1 and then 2-all. Then Miss Jacobs took the lead and went on to 5-2. Both players are now tiring, they just must. But Helen of the Moody Eyeshade again rises to invincibility and wins the set at 7-5. Two great Helens.
Still to come on Year by Year, Hollywood bids farewell to Will Rogers and Wiley Post. Plus, 1935's most popular films. Stay with us. The favorite films of 1935 were A Night at the Opera, starring the Marx Brothers, San Francisco with Clark Gable, and Mutiny on the Bounty with Charles Lawton.
Oklahoma bows in grief as the body of Wiley Post, Birdman extraordinary, leaves the capital on its last journey. A journey in slow and measured tread, strangely in contrast to his triumphant round-the-world flights, to his remarkable stratosphere hops, and to the epic funeral flight from far-off Alaska. Tenderly carried by brother flyers and newspaper pals, the man who wrote his name in gilded letters on the azure pages of aviation history comes to rest at last in Fairlawn Cemetery, Oklahoma City. Meanwhile, at Glendale, California, thousands have waited all night to bow at the bier of Will Rogers, the other victim of the fatal Arctic air crash. And now, in an unending stream, they file silently through Forest Lawn Park, past the flower-draped casket of the beloved humorist and screen favorite. Hollywood pays a last tribute to a departed pal and idol. There are special services at the studios. Here at Universal City, hundreds who revered the quaint cowboy who grew to be one of the nation's outstanding characters mourn his passing. And now comes the last touching ceremony in the wee kirk of the Heather, a chapel that Rogers loved. And to this picturesque spot have come the great and near great to say goodbye. There's Will Hayes, czar of the motion picture industry, and Joey Brown, saddened by the loss of his friend. There's Postmaster General Jim Farley and Irvin Cobb. Statesmen, actors, writers. Mary Pickford joins the sorrowing procession, grief-stricken and moved to tears. To Hollywood, as to all the world, Will Rogers was the salt of the earth. Something new in bathing suits. The material, I mean. It's wood. Woven wood. What do you think of that? Bet they have to watch out for splinters, though. Here at the Roney Plaza, the bathing girls are even going for wood evening gowns. Chiseling again, no doubt. And hand-tooled shawls. Hats, too, are wooden. Just another proof that clothes do grow on trees after all. Peach trees, without a doubt. And this new wrinkle in beachwear has changed the old nursery jingle. Now it's, Mother, may I go out to swim? Yes, my darling daughter, hang some hickory clothes on your limbs. But whatever you do, don't go near anyone with lighted matches. Yes, sir. It's back to nature this year with scantling scanties, layered lingerie, and two-piece timberlettes. Notre Dame's big football squad tries something new in the annals of pigskin pugilistics, spring training. The boys are out early for some strenuous practice sessions and looking forward to winning laurels on the field this fall. And win they will with a roster of returning stars like Dynamite Dan Reed, Bob Herberger, Jim Sinclair, and Lenny Horter. Great Britain's Air Might, fighters, bombers, reconnaissance, and coast defense planes of the Royal Air Force is assembled for inspection by King George at the Mindenhall Air Dome. And what a show it is. He has to drive for 5 miles along the parade formation of air fighters, the greatest concentration of battle planes ever reviewed by His Majesty. England has served notice on the world that her Air Force must be without peer, and this is ample proof of that determination. The King has reason to be proud of his aerial defenders. The Britons are not taking the backwash of anyone's propellers when it comes to air efficiency. The far-flung battle line of the U.S. Navy. The fleet's coming in. 17 miles of warships, accompanied by a vast armada of Navy battle planes, coming home from its summer cruise and battle practice to parade into port in a spectacular demonstration of Uncle Sam's might on the sea. A comforting sight in these days of turmoil abroad, when foreign powers are looking to their powder horns and breech locks, when war clouds hover over Europe and mighty sky fleets are tuning up for action. But today's demonstration is one of peace. The fleet, with its air escort, is parading into San Diego, California, as a tribute to the nation's youth, in connection with the presence in San Diego of thousands of youngsters from the southwestern states, school children here to see the exposition. And what an inspiring sight for the throngs of boys and girls packed along the shore. The majesty and strength of the nation's first line of defense, guarantors of the continuance of American ideals in America. The Indianapolis Speedway, noted arena of thrills with a record crowd of 150,000 out for the world-famous auto classic. 500 miles of grueling grind, lap after lap of skidding turns and roaring straightaways with death at the wheel. And they're limited on gas, too. Aces of the wheel, America's most daring drivers, demons of the track. There's the starting flag, and here they come. Off to a flying start in the great race of races, flirting with death every foot of the way in a traditional speed contest that has cost the lives of more than 30 drivers and mechanics in its 25 years. The track's lightning fast today, and they're topping 100. It's the fastest race on record. One car out of it for a while for repairs, or maybe it's just for gas and oil. Every car has to drop out and lose a lap or so now and then in this long-distance race. There's Kelly Patillo in number 5 taking the lead. He's making more than 110 miles an hour. They'll have to go some to head him off. Uh-oh, there's been some rain, and the racers have been flagged down to 75. It's in the bag for Patillo now with his long lead, and there's the finish. Kelly Patillo comes over the line with a new track record. The Los Angeles Daredevil averaged 106.25 miles an hour. But for the rain, he would have set an amazing mark. And isn't he the hero of the hour? They're even fighting to get a look at him. Besides the fame, he gets about $40,000 in prizes and gifts. And all this with a patched-up 4-cylinder car of his own. Great work, Kelly. When America plays at war, the entire world watches. Germany and Japan, and even Soviet Russia are represented in the Corps of Observers here at Pine Camp, New York, where the American Army is holding its biggest game since the World War. What a story the foreign officers will have to send back. America, with its handful of tanks, with its inadequate supply of trucks and airplanes, and its willing but insufficiently trained citizen soldiers. Senator Huey P. Long, storm center of Louisiana's hectic political scene, was shot in the state capitol at Baton Rouge in an attack on his life by Dr. Carl A. Weiss, Jr., a political opponent. The presence of armed guards could not prevent the attempted assassination, although Weiss was immediately afterwards riddled with bullets. Senator Long, whose Bayou dictatorship and political activities have made him a national figure, is lying at the point of death in a Baton Rouge hospital. His wife, however, is confident he will recover. His anti-administration battles have made many bitter enemies for him, but with his iron-handed sway over his own home state, his share of the wealth plan has attracted the attention and support of thousands of his fellow countrymen. An eyewitness to the death of Huey Long gives a vivid word picture of the shooting and the death of Carl Weiss, the assassin, under the guns of the dictator's bodyguard. Meanwhile, the murderer, who was mowed down by 61 slugs, has an immediate burial.
As I opened the door of the governor's office, the sound of a shot came from the corridor outside. Senator Long staggered away, his right hand clasping his side. Two men struggling on the floor, one I recognized as Murphy Roden, the highway policeman. He backed away from the other men, firing as he backed. Suddenly, a dozen more men began firing, and the hallway was filled with the sound of exploding fire.
It's the great annual Bathing Beauty Contest at Atlantic City, with glittering, glorious girls from cities all over the nation here to match their curves and features for the title of Miss America 1935. The judges are in a quandary as the local beauties appear in rapid succession. But at last, they seem to be lingering over Miss Pittsburgh. And so is the cameraman, it seems. And there's plenty of reason. Henrietta Lever, 5 and 10 store beauty of McKeesport, Pennsylvania, wins the coveted crown. Chicago, Illinois. 40 years of underwear displayed at the Merchandise Mart. From the befrilled unmentionables of the gay and gaudy 90s, down, and I mean down, to the flimsy doodads of today. When Nellie was a lady, they went in for yards and yards of lace gewgaws and pantaloons and petticoats and things. A regular walking department store, no less. Enough material to cover a multitude of shins, while daughter gets by today with much less.
Want me to read The Three Little Kittens? Yeah. Then, like a man, got in the jelly. No, you can't. the jam pot. And then they put, don't say it with me. Then they put,
Come on, Jane. Come on home now. It's supper time. Come on home. It's time for supper.
Hurry up, bring your wagon. Bring Junior, too.
Junior, oh, I have to go home.
Come on, Jane. Hurry up, Dean. Come on home now. It's time for supper. Bring the wagon and bring Junior with you. Hurry up.
Harlem goes haywire when its big black hope, Joe Louis, lays Max Baer low. In addition to the fight, he also wins a prize. And now he's headed for the heavyweight title.
In 1935, America was introduced to radar, nylon, and air hostesses on TWA. In 1935, the price of gasoline was 18 cents a gallon. A new car sold for $495, and the cost of a three-bedroom house was $6,296, with a mortgage of 5.5%.
The eyes of the entire nation are turned upon the 1935 automobile show just opened in New York City. This year, more than ever before, the annual Motor Car Coming Out Party is regarded as the best index of returned prosperity. As the auto industry goes, so goes the nation, is the new slogan of American business. And a trip through the vast exhibition shows plenty of reasons for the keen public interest in the new designs and improvements offered. 1936 cars will show vast improvements in appearance, comfort, safety, and economy, with a number of radical departures from former models. And there's no doubt their lure will help the manufacturers attain their 1936 goal of almost 4 million new cars and trucks. Also, the show's been advanced from January to November this year in order to spread out the industry's working season. It's a move which is met with universal favor, and it also helps in other ways. This year, for instance, you can ask Santa Claus for a brand new model car right in your Christmas stocking instead of having to wait until February for it. That ought to be great news for Dad.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Graham McNamee speaking from Naval Field in Detroit. We're going in very shortly to the 6th game of the World Series. Carrier, Tiger. And the counter-marching now going on in Italy give every indication of the grim purpose of Mussolini to again plunge his country into war. I want to say to the people of this country that one of the most salutary pieces of legislation that the last Congress enacted was the Neutrality Bill, which, so far as Congress was able to obtain that result in the closing days of the session, will, I hope, keep this country out of war and keep our boys safe on this side of the Atlantic Ocean.
New York City. The nation's hairdressers have evolved many new styles for 1935. Take this rooster's comb effect, for instance. Or maybe you'd rather take this modified Madame Diane creation with all the feather trimmings. Or again, there's the new Renaissance trend, a regal crown of hair for feminine beauty. Now comes a new evening hairstyle to be worn with tailored evening dress. Note the floral ornaments. And here's a 2-in-1 coiffure, easily arranged for both afternoon and evening wear. And a Trenton coiffure. Yes, sir, they're bang-up new styles. The epical inauguration of the first trans-Pacific airmail and passenger service. The giant airliner China Clipper hops off from San Francisco Bay on a successful 16,000-mile flight to Manila and back. The start of a new era in transportation. An outstanding scientific achievement in 1935, a successful stratosphere hop to a new world altitude record of 14 miles with a perfect landing by Captain Stevens and Anderson of the Army Air Corps and the National Geographic Society. President Roosevelt pledges America to keep out of war.
Despite what happens in continents overseas, the United States of America shall and must remain as long ago the father of our country prayed that it might remain, unentangled and free.
In 1935, German Jews were persecuted under the Nuremberg laws, and the rumblings of war became louder with each passing day. But President Roosevelt reassured the American people that there would be no war. In 1935, the president's battles weren't with Hitler, but rather with a divided Congress and the Supreme Court. This has been Year by Year. I'm Karen Stone for the History Channel. Thanks for watching.
How does Rollo the red-nosed reindeer sound? Or how about Reginald the red-nosed reindeer? Believe it or not, both names were considered for the most famous reindeer of all. Merry Christmas from all of us here at the History Channel.